Today's episode of Passionate Talk is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audio download and 30-day free trial at books.passionatetalk.com. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Get your 30-day free trial and free audiobook at books.passionatetalk.com. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Passionate Talk. I am your host, Gary Karp, and this is episode number 19. Today we're going to conclude our conversation with Harold Becker of the Love Foundation. All week we've been talking about unconditional love and the different aspects of love, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this conversation, this special Passionate Talk event on love. Today Harold and I are going to be chatting a little bit about thoughts and feelings, and how thoughts and feelings create our reality, and how also they bring us choice. Harold is also going to discuss the masculine and feminine sides of creation. And of course, we're going to talk all about unconditional love, and once again, Harold is going to bring up the question he's been asking all throughout these conversations. Do you love yourself enough? Do you love yourself enough to follow your dreams and passions? Do you love yourself enough to take control of the choices in your life? So, right now, I want you to sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, maybe make yourself a cup of tea, and enjoy the final part of my conversation. Just by being yourself, your perfect self, and accepting that, whether you want to go bowling on a Saturday night or you want to learn Kabbalah, it still is an individuation of divinity. So I think if we can change the definition of what spiritual is from this highfalutin one that we have where you have to scale Everest and you get 3 questions to ask to the Dalai Lama, so you better damn well ask the right ones, to something that's day in, day out, and very practical. So would you have any practical advice, things that people can do on a day in, day out basis that they could bring more divinity, more spirituality into their life and understand this concept of unconditional love?
My thoughts and my feelings create my reality. And when I became instantly aware of the fact that if I can pay attention to my thoughts and my feelings, I have a choice. The very fundamental fulcrum point is we each have a choice in every moment to whatever we think and feel. And if we have a compendium of thoughts that are a particular way, negative, criticizing, self-criticizing, criticizing outside, I can start to listen to my own thoughts while I'm having them, while I'm sharing, while I'm conversing, wherever I'm at. I can start paying attention to my thoughts as really the beginning stage, and then start noticing what type of thoughts do I have. Are they uplifting, empowering, encouraging, inspiring to myself and to anyone else? And if not, what can I do? How can I choose something differently? And if by beginning to make those choices, then we begin to change the direction of the way we think, change our perspective. And then added to that is this very important part that is lost, and it even has a kind of a religious tone to it, is the feminine. The thought has the more of the masculine energy. The feeling has the feminine side, which is, for some, would be considered the Holy Ghost. It's not extrapolated as understood, but the feeling nature of our beingness, where we really, a thought is a thought is a thought. It goes nowhere until we add feeling to it. In other words,
Absolutely.
if we think and feel, if I have a thought that I want to, say, build a house, and all I have is the thought, and I put no feeling into it, nothing happens. If I take that thought and I put feeling into it, in the sense of desire and the determination, I start to feel myself having the experience of the house. That feeling is what then coalesces and manifests the materials, the space, the place, the blueprints, the labor, everything, and then eventually I have that house manifested. So we are creator beings.
Feeling is the missing link when everybody talks about manifestation, or they talk about the law of attraction, or you need the feeling, you need that strong desire, that intention inside of you. And the feeling, the emotion that gets anchored to that thought is really what brings it home, that makes it manifest, that makes it create. We live our lives thinking that we're logical creatures. We're not logical creatures. I know society would love to tell us we're logical creatures, but we're not. We do everything on an emotional basis. If we were a logical creature, everybody knows that logically smoking will kill you, that smoking creates birth defects, that smoking decreases your value of life and your breath capacity, and it does ugly, ugly things to your health. If we were logical creatures, Philip Morris would be out of business.
Now, I make the distinction of the emotional as being really the human counterpart, where I really want to stress that when we're talking about thoughts and feelings in this sense, we're really talking about the highest thoughts we can think. In other words, the more positive side of life thoughts versus the destructive side of life. And then when the feeling, because again, going back to the analogy of all the songs that are out there that are heartbroken, that version of heartbroken love is an emotional response to our human experiences. What we're looking at and talking about is a universal love and a universal feeling. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, it's pure passion, to put it in the context of this very discussion we're having today. Pure passion is the feeling side of universal hope, knowing, understanding that the thoughts that I have are powerful and important, and with my pure passion, I infuse them with the energy to become things. So I do like to make a distinction, because a lot of people can say, well, particularly in the work that we do with Love Foundation, we do get quite a few responses from people that are coming from a very emotional, low vibrational understanding of love. They've been in a breakup or a heartbreak or some kind of thing, and so they're equating everything through that filter of the human emotion. And
Mm-hmm.
however powerful it is, it's nothing compared to what we're talking about. The pure passion, the pure co-creative side of life is vastly different than constantly responding externally to events. We're talking about coming back to our core creator essence as our ability to choose the thoughts and feelings we have and create a life that is in harmony with life itself,
Yep.
not a pursuit of something external that's trying to make everybody else think that we're something. This is about coming from that core creative nature, whether it's playing an instrument, making a canvas, creating a meal, or being in a judicial system where you're bringing genuine balance to right understanding. It places everywhere.
And I personally believe that the only thing we can control are our thoughts and feelings and how we respond and react to events. We can't control the events. I mean, when people say that, and they always ask me and they always tell me, sometimes rather snidely, well, how could you create your own reality? What's going to happen if you get robbed? If somebody robs you at gunpoint or knife point, and incidentally, that did happen to me while I was living in Jacksonville. I got robbed at gunpoint. I got mugged at gunpoint. And no, that happened. That was a terrible thing that happened. The only thing I could do was decide how I was going to think and feel about that and the choices I was going to make moving forward. I could make the choice to say, my God, this is a dangerous area, and move. I could say, well, the guy who mugged me was black, so therefore all black people are criminals. I chose to say, look, it happened, it was scary, it was an anomaly, I'll move on. Because the only thing we can control is how we think and feel about something and our reactions to it. I want to share with our listeners who may not know a wonderful book that changed my life, which is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And it goes to everything that we're talking about now about thoughts and feelings. Viktor Frankl was a person who survived the Holocaust. He is a Jewish man who was sent to a concentration camp, saw his wife, his family separated from them, and all of them died in the camps. He lived in the most horrible, horrible conditions in the camps, and he persevered. And the one thought he had in his mind was, they could take away my family, they could take away my life, they could take away my clothes, they could take away my health, but they cannot take away my mind, and I will beat them with my thoughts, because I am going to choose to see this as an opportunity to live every day and to know there's a way out and to be alive to tell the story of what happened. He made that conscious decision, and he survived multiple years in, I believe it was Auschwitz. When everyone around him had died, he survived because he made that conscious choice. So go ahead, get that book if you want to learn about thoughts and feelings. It's a wonderfully inspirational story, and it'll tell you the power of your thoughts and your feelings to create and manifest your life. This is not woo. This is pure scientific psychological fact.
And this is a former banker retail person who stumbled into all of this on his own and found the revelation of my personal power is in my choice of thoughts and feelings. And that was really the fundamental beginning point of everything else that happened, is I realized I could reclaim my power consciously by paying attention to all of my thoughts and all of my feelings. And to this point, if we've spent a lifetime up to now essentially unconscious of our own inner thinking and our own inner feeling, we shouldn't be surprised if in the next moments we still encounter thoughts and feelings manifesting. So the first few moments, as we begin to turn this train around, we're still going to see the remnants of old ideas put into motion that are finally showing up in our world. What's beautiful about this, and this is where it is and has been such a life-changing experience for me, is once I realized I had choice in my world, it reordered my understanding of life. And that I could go forward and say, well, that's an interesting thought. Do I choose that? Is that, that's somebody else's idea of, do I see life that way? And I can either agree with it or disagree. I don't have to follow suit. I can actually choose my thoughts and then pay attention to the feelings that go with it. Because this is where a lot of people fail with positive affirmation. They make a lot of positive affirmations while they simultaneously feel critical about themselves.
Yep.
And you have to bring the feeling to correlate with the thought, or they will always be in opposition. And that can be the difficult thing. Isn't necessarily becoming aware of thoughts and then changing those thoughts. We can move negative thoughts to positive thoughts and uplifting thoughts, and really I go beyond just calling positive. They're really things that encourage and inspire us. The one that can be far more challenging is to notice the feeling world, because we have, as Eckhart Tolle says in his books, The Pain Body, we have things from childhood that resurface in feeling over and over again as a way to get our attention, saying we're not really congruent with our thoughts and our feelings, and they can surprise us at times, because when positive, and then all of a sudden you feel terribly fearful or terribly afraid or terribly guilty or terribly ashamed, that's when we want to take the same thing we do with our thoughts. We want to take our feelings and say, okay, I'm going to feel empowered. I'm going to feel uplifted. In this moment, this is the one moment we have choice. We don't have choice in yesterday's thinking. We don't have choice in tomorrow's future potential. We do have choice right here and right now. That's why living in the present moment is so central to what we're talking about, because the past is gone. The future will unfold as it did for me, and it continues to do for me, because I look at each day with as much of an unlimited potential that I really don't always know which direction it will take me in. Not for everybody. Some people want to know that, that everything's going to be there the way they expect it to be there. But for me, I actually enjoy the unknown. I enjoy that, and I've learned to coalesce my thoughts and my feelings to align with the joy of expectation of possibilities. And a lot of us don't have that.
One of the first lessons that you are taught when you start studying meditation is when you are first going into that meditative state and you're doing your pranic breathing, your deep breathing, and you're relaxing every part of your body, that your brain is going to rebel at that moment. Your brain is going to throw you 14 gazillion thoughts, because your brain at that moment is going, no, wait a second, I don't need to be shut off, which is exactly what you're doing when you're meditating. You're going into a state of oneness, a state of bliss, if you will. And the one thing that you're taught is to acknowledge the thoughts, but not to own them. So when you get and I'll use the term negative thought, When you have a negative thought, you can just acknowledge it but choose not to own it. You can just see it, look at it in your mind's eye, and say, oh, that's nice, have a nice day, and send it on its way. That is a wonderful way to bring yourself to your center, to bring yourself, especially, as Harold says, the past is the past, the present hasn't happened. The phrase I always use is, the past is history, the future is a mystery, today is a gift, that's why they call it the present. And that present moment and the ever infinite eternal moment of now and this moment and this moment and this moment and this moment is the only moment we have. Your brain's job is to keep you in a place of either the past or the future, because it's trying to keep you safe. So please understand that even with the negative thoughts, don't beat yourself up, don't beat your brain up. Your brain is trying to keep you safe and keep you alive. That was its evolutionary reason for being. So if you have those negative thoughts, all you need to do is acknowledge them. Don't own them. Simply acknowledge them and let them go on their way. Let them fly out of your minds. If you're a visual person, picture them with wings flying away. I know that sounds crazy, but it does work. And keep yourself in that present moment. And the one thing I love about the term present is the wordplay involved in there, that we are living in the present, and a present is also a gift that you give to someone or yourself. So this present moment is actually a gift you gave to yourself. There is nothing wrong in this moment. And the other thing I love about the wordplay of the word present, if you break it down, it actually forms the two words present, which means somewhere in this consciousness, you made a deal with yourself, or you made a deal with the universe to bring this experience to you at this moment. Nothing is happening that wasn't supposed to happen. And that's not fate in the way that, all of us are written down in the book of life. It's fate in the way that you chose to have your life unfold.
Exactly. And one of the additional tools that has been invaluable, understanding this present moment, can be conceptual. What would be a tool that we could use that brings us into the present moment quickly and easily when we do get ourselves into pondering the past and we get stuck in our memories, or we concern ourselves over the future, and we really move out of the present when we're doing that, is to the idea of meditation. We can practice meditation, and I've learned over the years that, whatever meditation works best for people is the one they should use. And for me, it's been a very simple one, like you were describing, where you simply sit down and you let all that effluvia, all that mental conversation just dissipate by not trying to do anything with it. Just let it be there and let it go, and not attach ourselves to any one of them. And when we're doing that, we do alter the state of our consciousness, and new fresh ideas can come in. Well, how do we do that in a practical day-to-day, when we're in the middle of a day and something comes up and we find ourselves triggered or jarred by an experience? The quickest way to get back into the present moment is to take a deep breath. That deep
Absolutely.
breath brings us consciously. It is fascinating, because a deep breath makes us aware of our physical body. And the moment we're aware of our physical body, we simultaneously bring our mind, our heart, our physical body, and our essence, whatever you'd like to call that, divine, spiritual, higher self, consciousness, doesn't really matter, whatever that essence is, all together at the same time, versus where a lot of us will dwell. We'll be in our head trying to sort out something, and we're not present. We literally have no awareness of our breath. We can be all emotional over something, and we are literally not present and aware of our breath. It's when we are actually breathing, that's when we bring ourselves into the moment.
I am going to go back to cigarettes, because if you ask any smoker out there, and I smoked for years, I was a 2-pack-a-day smoker. And if you ask any smoker why they smoke, they're going to tell you that it calms them down. But if you look at what a cigarette is, cigarettes have nicotine. Nicotine is an amphetamine. What if it gives you adrenaline? It speeds up your heart. There is no way that could calm you down. So what's really going on? Well, what goes on is when you take a drag of a cigarette, you're stopping and you're interrupting your normal breath pattern, and you're breathing deeply. You're holding that smoke in your lungs, and then you are releasing it with a long exhale. Well, what you're doing is an abbreviated version of a pranic breathing exercise that I teach all my clients, or what is a 4-8-8 breathing exercise, which is simply breathing in for a count of 4, holding it for a count of 8, and releasing it for a count of 8. That's what smokers do all the time. That's what's calming you down and bringing you back to the present. It has nothing to do with the cigarette.
Exactly. And these days, for many people, it because it's been relegated to outdoors, it's oftentimes the only time they're out in nature because that's the only place they can smoke anymore. Uh,
Absolutely. And
it's quite funny.
that's also a very important way of getting back into the present moment
Yeah.
is spending time in nature. Now, you don't have to run off to a forest or go climb a mountain. If you live in a city like I do in Manhattan or Brooklyn, where I am, there are city parks around. There is Central Park. I just discovered the other day I'm doing some research on where to film some videos that I'll be filming in a couple of weeks. And I discovered there's a place in Central Park that's a 4 or 5 acre nature preserve for the Audubon Society. That there are trees and lakes and birds, and you forget that you're in a concrete jungle when you're there. And that is
Mhm.
another great way of connecting to yourself and bringing yourself back to the present moment.
And if you, there are so many proactive ways to do it. It's so somebody that is in the city and they say they don't really have access to the nature until the weekend. Well, then find some flowers or a potted plant and put it on your desk. Put it in your place of living because just gazing on nature, because nature is unconditional. It is already embodying everything that we're capable of, and yet because of our human focus on the external events of life, we tend to forget that inner nature of where it all begins. And these are the ways that whether breathing while you're out there in the middle of shopping or on the highway, or whether you're sitting at your desk, your cubicle, or in your apartment or your home and you stop and you look at a plant, these are all excellent trigger points that bring us back to ourselves. And the more we do it, the more it becomes a natural aspect and way we live life. And that's really what we're talking about. I mean, again, Gary, we share a similar length of time on this pathway. And I do
Mm-hmm.
know that some of the things that, we talk about seem so second nature. And it is kind of, it's great for us in the sense that we've, we've made some of the big heavy decisions early on, and we're getting to enjoy the fruits of those choices by having a life that is just filled with opportunity, whereas somebody that feels perhaps locked into a corner in a dead end with relationships, with work, with life, whatever it is, it may seem like what we're talking about is absolutely intangible, untouchable, unrealistic, woo woo. I mean, in other words, we can make up all kinds of ways to avoid what's going on in our heart. And yet, what we're actually saying is whatever's going on in your heart, trust it, unfold it. It is an unfolding, it is a journey, it isn't a specific destination. And every time I think we're coming up to a destination, we finally achieve something, it simply opens up new opportunities for greater expansion. And certainly when I look back at what I thought was a very active life, it is dull and boring in comparison to the life I live now, because now the world is my canvas and all things are possible. And to explore it from that level is so far more interesting and filled with nuances and sensuality and beauty and harmony. And for individuals like you and I that can say, we are actually looking at our community, our nation, and our humanity and saying, look at the incredible potential, because we see the heart fire in each person. The personality is the personality, and the personality can change. We all do it. But if we
Mm-hmm.
only look at the personality, we get blocked by what we think is the limited expression. Whereas if we see beyond it, we see the heart flame, we see the beauty, we see the potential, we see the spiritual essence. And literally, it also changes then our interaction with people, our conversations with individuals. We walk up to somebody with a smile, we have a very strong chance of evoking a smile in them. If we go up with a frown, if we go up with anger, we have a really strong chance of bringing out their fire and anger. So it really is up to each of us. If we're going to see change in this world, we're the ones that are doing the changing, and it's by our choice of thoughts, our choice of feelings, our choice to love ourselves enough to take a deep breath, love ourselves enough to go into nature, love ourselves enough to do something that sings to our heart versus doing things we think we're supposed to. We still all have a responsibility. You might have children, you might have a job. We're not saying jump away and leave all of that. We're saying bring your presence into all of that. Bring your consciousness into all of it.
This brings me to my favorite part of every podcast, where I ask the same question in different ways, because there are people listening to this podcast that are right now struggling with that journey. They may be starting on it, they may be in the middle of it and wondering how to progress. And there may be people who are listening to us and say, you guys are full of shit. You have no idea what my life is like. How dare you tell me that unconditional love is the right way of doing it? What practical advice that people can do day in, day out? I know we touched on breathing and getting into nature, but what other advice could you give to somebody who's on this journey to allow them to progress easier and to make that journey a little bit quicker and a little bit more enjoyable for them?
My classic question, I've already mentioned it once, and I think as even for your setup, you're like, if you're in this most impossible place and think everything we're talking about is just complete, unrealistic, I would say, start with the simple question of, do you love yourself unconditionally? And then sit with it for a moment. And if your initial response is no, absolutely not, cannot possibly, then the second question I ask is, do you like yourself? And if you can find something you like, and if you can start from that place, you can work yourself into that unconditional love space. I will say that these types of simple questions are so fundamentally different than anything any of us have been exposed to. I mean, I don't know what would have happened in my life if somebody at age 5 or 10 or 15 would have said, do you love yourself? I don't know. If I would have had somebody that could have started back then to show me my creative power, that all these things that I've had uncovered for myself and share with others, my life would be very different. My life has become very different because I did love myself enough to ask the questions. So if it has to be even more simply, who am I? And you may not get an immediate response. You may not get a response in your entire lifetime. However, the mere asking of the question brings the answer at some point. The opportunity knocking at my heart saying, how about if you ask some different questions? Maybe you've been asking the wrong questions about life. And as I started to ask those questions, I started to unfold a whole different reality. And I will reiterate again, nothing from my pathway is filled with any particular creed or dogma or pursuit or understanding. I have been personally far more universal. If anything, I was the logical person. I was the one that did everything right because it was logically correct. And I found this feeling nature in me because I started to ask bigger questions about life itself. And that continues some 30 years later for me also. I keep asking the questions, and the more I find that I don't know anything, the more beautiful life becomes, because I keep getting to fill my cup with more and more insights and awareness. The moment I think I've got it figured out, it comes to a dead end, and I'm proven that that's not the end. So really ask the questions, and on a very personal level, since Gary and I are sharing this conversation, the fundamental question that we found, and we all both took independently, personally, in our own pathway, separately, was, do I love myself unconditionally? And when we were able to answer that genuinely, I'm speaking for you, Gary, in here, but you can certainly jump in. It changed my life. So I'm sure it changed your life.
Quite honestly, this is where I think I know I'm supposed to be. These high-level conversations and these bringing people to themselves and empowering them. Sitting in a cubicle never did anything for me. Making a ton of money never did anything for me. This is where I'm supposed to be, and that goes back to, do you love yourself enough to follow your passions and do what you need to do?
Yes.
Folks, if you're interested in knowing yourself and going inside, one of the best books I've found is a book called The Power of Love by Deepak Chopra. So you may want to check that out. It is a wonderful book that brought up so many parts of me that I did not realize were there, and so many emotional blocks that it helped me clear. I would recommend it for everyone. Harold, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've loved our time together. As always, we lost track of time, and we can talk forever on these things. I do mean it. Next time I come down to Florida, we're going to crack open a bottle of wine, and we're just going to sit on the patio, and we're going to talk to the wee hours of the morning.
I'm sure it will, that and longer, no doubt.
Absolutely. As long as it's a bottle of red, I'm happy.
Okay.
I prefer red to wine. But for right now, what I'd like to do is give you the opportunity to talk about the Love Foundation or anything else that you have going on that you would like to promote. And I'll just give the floor to you.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and this has been delightful as I expected it would be. I mean, our conversations in the past have always been constant. I won't say fireworks. As each of us share, it's like you can feel the energy build and build and build because there's such genuine passion for compassion, and that really is what we've all come to understand. That's what we're about. And certainly, I encourage anybody, to seek you out, Gary, because I truly love your insights and understandings. And if anybody wants to find out more about me or the Love Foundation, our nonprofit, you can visit thelovefoundation.com. We are a 501c3 and have been 17 years in existence. You can find us through all the social networks. We have pages, we have our programs out there. It's all designed for your creative input and insights. So we have a bunch of different ways where you can find opportunities to share and inspire your love. And if you want to reach out and talk to me personally, you can do that through our website, also internalinsights.com website, or again through any of the pages, because our moderators will make sure that I get to see the message. So it's been an absolute pleasure and delight to share the love with you, Gary, and to your audience. And I encourage each and every one of you to find that spark in your heart, listen to it, pay attention to it, explore it, unfold it, release it. It is a fantastic journey, and it just keeps getting better with each passing moment.
Harold, it's been wonderful. I do want to ask you one question. You mentioned that you've written 5 books. Are they available on Amazon or on any of our platforms that our listeners may want to check them out?
Yes, the 5 books are available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, through any of our websites. The one where we talked about unconditional love is an unlimited way of being. That is the title of my second major book, and that's the very thorough book. The first book is Internal Power, 7 Doorways to Self-Discovery. That's what started it all for me. And it's a very practical, hands-on beginning point. The Unconditional Love book goes into more deeper explanation of the idea of unconditional love. And then the other books are really, I love to call them the meditation books or the bathroom books. They're the great, whenever you need to have a moment of inspiration, you can pick them up. In fact, I will even give a plug. We have an app. We have an app on Android and on Apple, where you can actually, I have 1,001 quotes of love that I've written over the years, and our app will actually, when you download it for free, and whenever you want a moment of inspiration, you just open up the app and you get a spontaneous, random quote of love. And if you want another one, you just tap that quote, and it brings up another random one.
And what's the name of that? And what's the name of that app?
That's actually our Inspire Love app, and again, available on Android and on Apple, and it's free, and it's also, you can find it through our website, the links there for it. So we strive to inspire, and that's our joy, and I say ours because we are a family here at the Love Foundation. Gary, you're certainly part of the family.
Proud to be.
For all of those of us that are here on the planet right now, remembering it's all about love, the very practical, pragmatic understanding of love that we really can and do share at each moment. That's what we're here for, and that's what we do, and that's who we are. And I love to, interact with any of you out there that are listening to this. I make myself available, and just reach out, and we'll start our own conversation.
And folks, I just want to let you know, Harold is one of the most nicest, genuine people that I have ever met in my life. I've known him for about 3 years or 4 years now, and he really walks his talk. He means what he says. If you just want to reach out to him, how could people reach out to you? Are you on Facebook or Twitter?
We're on all of them. If you go to thelovefoundation.com, there is a tab that has all our social pages, and through any of those, I have both personal pages, fan pages. The Love Foundation has a variety of pages and groups where you can interact. We're on Instagram, Pinterest. We're even in Second Life. If you we have a virtual office in Second Life. So if you want to come meet me out in a virtual reality, we can make an appointment and visit in Second Life with our little avatars and chat in that
Okay,
reality.
that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
the nerd and the nerd in me just geeked out when you said you had a virtual office in Second Life.
Yep.
Folks, if you don't know what Second Life is, it's a wonderful virtual reality that I don't even know how to explain it. Just check it out. I believe it's secondlife.com. It's a ton of fun. It really is.
We have the Love Foundation has an office out there. We're part of 120 nonprofits in our particular sim. And, people don't realize, but NASA's out there. The Mayo Clinic is out there. Numerous universities and colleges are out there. Our consortium is a group of 120 nonprofits that we gather. We have our own offices and stuff. And it has been mind-blowingly fun to just have a virtual reality and then interact and almost like what feels like real life, but it's really a Second Life. So,
well, Harold, this has been a wonderful conversation, as it always is with you. It's been inspirational, and I do want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with me today.
Appreciate the passionate invitation, and I love to see what you're doing just take off astronomically and reach the hearts of so many people, which I know it will.
That was a great conversation we had with Harold. All week, he just dropped truth nuggets after truth nuggets after truth nuggets. I really hope you enjoyed this week-long event that we had on Passionate Talk dedicated to love and unconditional love. If you missed parts 1 and 2, you can find them on my website, www.passionatetalk.com. Go there, check it out, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast through iTunes or Stitcher Radio or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Harold gave us some great advice. He kept asking us the same question over and over again. Do we love ourselves enough? Do we love ourselves enough to follow our dreams and passions? Do we love ourselves enough to love ourselves unconditionally, warts and all? Do we love ourselves enough to make the choices that we can, to explore our thoughts and feelings and use them to guide us? Thoughts and feelings are the key to everything, folks. It's the emotion that creates motion. In the law of attraction, we say that energy flows where intention goes, and the best way to get your intention up is to get your energy up, is to get your emotions firmly behind your intention. Now, if you're interested in getting in touch with Harold, you can find him again at thelovefoundation.com. That link, as well as the links for all of his businesses, and especially Second Life, which if you haven't checked it out, it is so cool. Please go do so. That's going to be up on his conversation page on Passionate Talk, so go there and check it out, as well as any of his books or any of the books that we spoke about in all of the parts of this episode. You can find them at the website. I really hope that you've enjoyed this, folks, but right now that's all the time that we have. So until we meet again, follow your dreams and passions and manifest the life that you choose. Hey folks, it's Gary. If you're interested in checking out The Path to Love by Deepak Chopra or Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl or any of the books that we talked about on this week's conversations, head on over to books.passionatetalk.com and start your 30-day free trial and get your free audiobook. You can download The Path to Love by Deepak Chopra or Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl or any of the 180,000 titles that they have by visiting books.passionatetalk.com.